So Rick has become a really fun, dear friend, and he's an executive recruiter. And he is really, I mean, an amazing person, an amazing professional. And his LinkedIn posts are really heartwarming, profound, insightful, etc. But Rick has been doing executive recruiting for almost 30 years, and he's got quite a history of, how he got into doing what he's doing, and he's really well situated to do what he's doing. And he is so helpful to people. And so his business, like ours, is really about paying it forward and giving back. And that's why I really like Rick so much. People have asked me, knowing that you're coming on, Rick, well, wait a minute, you're having a competitor. It's like I see it more as complimentary. And, Rick is just such a dear person. And I have so much respect for him, and I look up to him greatly. And so please welcome Rick. And Rick, I'm turning it over to you now. Thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome. Hi, Christy. Hi, everybody. Good morning. I don't know where you are, but congratulations, you're in the right spot. If you're in career transition, I like to say there's only two kinds of people, Christy. Those that have been in career transition and those that will be at some point in their career, right? And one of the things, guys, that makes me kind of uniquely qualified to do this is I've sat at all three seats at the table. If you think about it, there are candidates looking to get hired, like many of you, and like I was at one point. There are hiring managers, HR executives, and then there are recruiters like myself today. And I've been in all three of those seats. So I intimately know what this transaction looks like. And one of the things we want to talk about today, the title was Insights from an Executive Recruiter. I don't know how often you guys have recruiters, but I've been doing this for a long time. And I kind of know what makes recruiters and hiring managers tick. So if I'm a candidate, I'm going to kind of pull the curtain back and let you see behind closed doors, because has this ever happened to you? You finish an interview, you finish a phone call or maybe a meeting, you're at a networking event, you meet somebody who's a great prospect and you leave, and on your way back to your car, what are you thinking? I wonder how I did. Do they like me? Do they like me enough to advance me or introduce me to someone else? And so when I tell you that I've been in those rooms behind those closed doors, I've been in those conversations. I know what they liked. I know what they didn't like. I know what the red flags and the green flags were. And so I'm going to try to give you a little bit of an insight today, guys. So I'm with my people. Okay. I'm with people in transition, professionals. Every one of you are talented and have gifts. No question about it. And if you've had trouble getting traction, just remember, failure is not fatal. In fact, I think it's essential. The way to get to that next new perfect assignment is, what do you got to kiss a lot of frogs, right? Before you kiss that handsome prince. So the other thing that I want to talk about today is what I call the secret weapon for a great candidate. If you want to be advanced, I often hear candidates tell me, they'll say, Rick, why am I not getting called back? Why am I not getting scheduled for an interview? Why am I not getting advanced in the hiring process? Guess what, guys? Wrong question. The better question is, what would have to happen in order for me to be advanced? What would I need to be able to do? What would I need to be prepared to say or do or demonstrate to get advanced to the next level? And so I think that's the better question. And here's what I'm going to tell you the answer is. You ready? It's one word: confidence. Confidence. So the candidates, all things being equal, I think it was somebody famous said, all things being equal, you buy from someone you like and trust, right? Or you trust. I would also say somebody you like and trust who made you feel good, who conveyed a sense of confidence. So I'm going to talk a little bit about confidence, guys. And if it's okay with you, Christy, I would love to share a presentation.
Absolutely.
Can everybody see this? It's called The Candidate Readiness Builds
Yes.
Confidence. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when I talk about green flags and red flags, these are things that recruiters notice. Okay. And I'm going to provide you with a practical worksheet. In fact, I'm going to give you a link here that looks like this. Can everybody see this? It's called a candidate readiness worksheet. So let me tell you why I think you either have or don't have confidence. Remember Jack Palance said confidence is sexy. You remember that from, I forget what, the City Slickers, I think was the name of the movie. Some of you guys probably have never seen that movie. But guys, confidence is when you are prepared. If you want to be more confident, be more prepared. And what does prepared mean? It means being ready. Okay. So there's my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me. I'll provide this to Christy and the team for later. But here's why this matters, guys. First of all, you got to put yourself in the shoes of the recruiter and the hiring manager or the business owner. So the speed of their hiring decision, recruiters make decisions fast. You're evaluated on several things, but namely clarity, ownership, and alignment within minutes. That first impression, you never get a second chance to make a good first impression. I believe that you can get disqualified faster than you can get qualified. And if you want an advantage, what you need to do is be able to spot behaviors that'll help move you forward and also recognize what are those behaviors and traits that'll get you knocked out. Because at the end of the day, recruiters and hiring managers, my job is to make the head of HR look good. My job is to make the hiring manager look good. The hiring manager's job is to make the owner of the company look good, right? And so in order for me to do that properly, I've got to recommend great candidates who I'm confident can do the job well, who are qualified, have the skill set, but also those that demonstrate that they can do it well. So let's talk about what you're going to learn. And I'll go over this sort of quickly. We're going to talk about first impressions. How do you evaluate them? What are some of the green flags that'll strengthen your candidacy? The third thing will be some of the red flags. What are those things that I call it quietly eliminate candidates? You ever been quietly eliminated? Like you didn't get a call back, but I don't know why. Like today they call it ghosting, right? Just didn't get a call back. What are some patterns you want to recognize and how to recognize your own patterns? And then we want to come up with an action plan to evaluate your professional presence. So first impressions. What I'm going to do, guys, is in that worksheet I showed you, and I'm going to put that link, not now, but at the end, so you can look it over yourself. What I want you to do, if you have a pen and paper, I'm going to give you, these are 5 things that you can self-assess yourself, and I want you to give you a score of 1 to 5. 5 being great, excellent, 1 being you're weak in this area. And the scale goes 1 to 5. So in terms of communication clarity, how do you clearly articulate your thoughts? Would you give yourself a 5, a 3, a 2? Write that down. Write that down. Second thing, professional presence. How do you show up in professional settings? Go ahead and give yourself a score, 1 to 5. Next one will be responsiveness. How quickly and professionally do you respond? I have one of these power phrases. I say, it's not what you know, it's what you can think of in time. One of the things that demonstrates confidence, if I ask a candidate a question and they're ready with a response that makes sense, that's intelligent, that actually answers the question, I assume there's a perceived credibility, there's a perceived intelligence, there's a perceived capability that comes along with a quick response. Career story. Can you explain your career journey clearly? What would you give yourself? Excellent, a 5, or a 1? It's one of your weak areas. And then interview confidence. How confident are you in your interview skills? If you get put in an interview situation, are you confident that you can do well? Okay, after you give yourself a score in those 5 areas, what I want you to do now is add those numbers up. If your score is 18 or below, or I should say if it's below 18, this is where you want to focus right here, guys. If it's above 18, you're doing okay. Okay, so that's section 1 of the assessment. And again, first impression reflection. Here's the question. Would I hire me based solely on my first 10 minutes? So when you go into that, I really believe within the first 10 to 15 seconds, you're making a positive or negative impression, but everything matters. your LinkedIn profile, your headshot, your photo, your resume, your website, your background, your CV. If the answer is not an easy yes, what we need to do then is identify what needs tightening up. So your first impression sets the tone for everything, right? Recruiters form opinions quickly, and those initial moments really carry significant weight throughout the evaluation process. I would tell you, candidates are eliminated more quickly than they are passed through. So we want to avoid those pitfalls. I know where those landmines are. We'll talk about some of them. So here are some of the green flags, guys. And I apologize for the small print, but I'm going to read these out. And this is in the assessment. So if you don't write it down, don't worry, it's in the assessment. These are some of the things that recruiters love. Okay. Direct and clear answers. Number one. So no rambling, no unnecessary details. Secondly, confident but not arrogant. So you're self-assured, but you're not overbearing. It's like remember the story about the three little bears? That porridge was too hot. That porridge was too, cold. This porridge was just right. You want to be the just right candidate. What about plain English explanations? So avoiding jargon or complexity. You don't want to use a lot of buzzwords. Just speak in English. Have a conversation. Another thing recruiters like is when you have strong metrics or results. So if you have quantifiable achievements that you can not only include in your resume, CV, LinkedIn profile, but also talk about easily, that's also something we love. Logical career moves is another one. So if there's a clear career progression or path, if it makes sense. Actually, guys, I don't worry about gaps. Professionals that have been around more than 15, 20 years, even over 10 or 12 years, many times will have gaps. The gaps don't bother me. What bothers me is gaps that can't be explained. Okay. So it's not only can you explain it, but how comfortable are you when you explain it? If it makes sense, if it comes across comfortably, it makes it more believable. Again, lifting my confidence, right? Ownership without excuses. If things didn't go well, maybe you got laid off, even if you got dismissed at a place. What happened? Did you take ownership? And what came of it, right? What was the action? So taking responsibility. Also, you'd be surprised. The candidates that come to me with the best intelligent questions prepared in advance, they show a general curiosity, sort of a high sense of curiosity. That's also a big green flag for me because that tells me what? You did your homework. Recruiters won't tell you this, nor will hiring managers, but people who ask great questions, to me, that's a sign of intelligence. Okay. My sister had a baby one time and the baby had a large head and the doctor, she was like, oh my God, my baby has a big head. And doctor, that's a sign of intelligence. Of course, his body caught up with his head at one point, right? But trust me, asking great questions is another green flag. Also, consistency across your platforms. So does your LinkedIn, resume, social media, does all that link up? Because I used to teach math in another life many, many years ago for 5 years. I taught geometry, and there was a word in geometry called congruence. Congruence. It means like if you have a congruent triangle, all three sides of the triangle are equal in length, and each of the angles in the triangle are equal in measure. That's congruent. You need to be congruent across all platforms. Finally, timely professional communication. How responsive and courteous are you? Do you follow up quickly? I will tell you that when I worked at AT&T many years ago, when voicemail first came out, we were told, leave in your greeting. I will respond to your message within 24 hours. And we were told we had to return voicemails in the morning, at noon, midday, and at the end of a business day, every single day, even if we didn't have the answer to what their question was. Why? Because we had done studies and research, and they had much deeper pockets than I did, and found that there was a direct correlation between responsiveness and customer satisfaction. Direct correlation. That also applies in hiring, guys. So if you get a message from a hiring manager recruiter and it takes you a day or two to respond, even though it may not mean that you're unresponsive, there's a perception there, right? So we're managing perception. Again, what is my job? To make my clients look good. And really what that means is it's all about risk mitigation. So let's go to the next one. After you've seen those green flags, what I would like for all of you to do is, what is your number one of those things we talked about? What do you think is the one that's your top strength? What is your number one green flag? Then write down what's your second strength. What do you think is the strength that ranks second in your ability? And then what's your third best strength? The reason I want you to prioritize those, all of them are important, but whatever you identify as your top three, you want to lead with those in every single interaction. Be able to talk about those, demonstrate those, have stories that basically talk about that's what you're good at. Okay. Now let's move on to red flags. Again, my job as a recruiter is to mitigate the risk of a candidate or a client company making a bad hire. That's my job. Okay. So you don't want to give me any reason to dismiss you. These are some of the reasons we would want to dismiss you. Number one would be if when I'm talking to you, you ramble, your answers are rambling. Don't have a lot of focus and clarity. If you have job changes that are unclear, you can't explain the gaps or the moves. Be able to be prepared for that question. You're going to get it, right? Low energy or uncertainty. So lack of enthusiasm or direction. Everybody has a vibration. Maya Angelou said, people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And in any interaction with a hiring manager or a prospective employer, the energy you bring, guys, transmits an emotion, and you're really selling yourself. Here's the difficulty is we've been taught from a very young age not to boast, not to be arrogant, right? Not to brag about ourselves. So it's very uncomfortable for many of us to talk about ourselves. But my grandmother said, it's a sorry rooster that won't crow in his own fence. Sorry, my mom grew up in Alabama. Guys, when you're in this situation, this is the time to crow about what you're good at, okay? So, but it's not a time to talk negative about past teams or bosses or companies. So another turnoff is blaming other people or complaining. Oh, I didn't have enough resources. That we didn't have enough investment. None of that is inside your control. Wherever you go, that's where you bring yourself and all of your gifts and talents and skills and abilities. You can make a difference. Don't be the thermometer, be the thermostat. Set the temperature. The other was no measurable accomplishments. You need to have accomplishments that you can quantify, talk about, demonstrate, and perhaps even have other people talk about in a recommendation, maybe on LinkedIn or in a reference letter, or maybe even in a video. Candidates that come to me with a built-in reference that get referred to me from someone whose opinion I trust, they always jump to the top of the pile. They always get a call back. They very often make it to at least the first or second level of interview. Why? The risk is lower. They have a built-in reference. So why can't you have a built-in reference on your LinkedIn profile or at the bottom of your resume? Also, people that are defensive. If you react poorly to questions, or again, you're not prepared for the tough questions with a prepared answer. And again, I don't want you to be like reading off a script, but you need to be prepared for those tough questions and practice, drill, and rehearse. PDR, practice, drill, and rehearse your response so that when that question invariably comes, it rolls off the tip of your tongue very, very comfortably. People that interrupt or over talking, right? You're not listening. I ask a question, you answer a different question. Wait, that's not the question I ask you. It's not a deal breaker. None of these are deal breakers, by the way, but it is a red flag. Slow responses. Again, we said responsiveness is a direct correlation to customer satisfaction. Same thing in getting advanced in the process. Also, generic answers. If you don't have specificity, you're not prepared with the details about a story, you're going to get those behavioral questions, guys. You all have heard them. Explain a time when blank, 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 and what did you do? How did you handle it? And what was the result? We all know the STAR technique. Hopefully you do. And then weak motivation for the role. They're going to ask you, why should we hire you? Or what about this role interests you? You need to be prepared for that. So any of these that you miss could potentially be red flags and get you disqualified earlier. So I want you to do the same thing with those red flags. What are the top 3 things that you think are holding you back? What behavior is holding me? And then what's the improvement step that you'll do, put into place so that you can do it differently the next time? So I would list my top, my second, my third. What are the things holding me back? Okay. So when we talked about alignment and motivation, this is something you kind of need to do. It's kind of a self-analysis. This is going to be in the document that I share with you, but you want to complete these and clarify kind of your professional positioning. So if I were to ask you, if I were to ask myself, I am most motivated by, like, what drives me professionally? What gets you excited about work? You need to be able to talk about that. One of the questions I ask in interviews very often is, so let's say I was interviewing Ganesh. I'd say, Ganesh, so tell me, what are you passionate about? And he might say, well, what do you mean, personally or professionally? It's like, either one. What are you passionate about? Because someone who's passionate, it's like they light up when they talk about it, right? I light up when I talk about my granddaughter, when I talk about the music I love or the food I love to eat. I had to learn how to cook because I love to eat. I grew up in a great food town, New Orleans, Louisiana, and both my grandmothers were amazing cooks. So I got spoiled. My poor wife, she suffers. The second question, I thrive in environments where what conditions bring out your best performance? And by the way, these questions are really good because it'll help you identify what a really good fit for you looks like. And then when you meet the company or the hiring manager or the recruiter that presents this kind of opportunity, you can say, yeah, your opportunity is one that I really thrive in because I love environments where it's fast paced, where you never get bored. There's a challenge every day, or I'm dealing with people and problems every day because I'm a problem solver, right? Okay. Because really at the end of the day, hiring is nothing more than what? Solving a problem. And if you are potentially the solution to that problem, you're more likely to get hired. Does that make sense? Problems I solve best are, boom. A hiring manager would hire me because what? And then finally, a hiring manager might hesitate because what concerns might they have? And how will you address them? Here's my take on concerns. And we talked about job gaps or gaps in your resume in the past, but there may be other concerns. And there's a whole list of them. Like, for example, people that are a little more seasoned, which is code for older, there is age discrimination that happens out there. I don't do it. I don't condone it. I try to present the best candidate possible for the job, regardless of all the other taboo discussion items. But if you think there's a concern about anything in your background or you as a candidate, I always recommend you bring it up. Don't wait for it to get brought up. And you control the narrative. You say, some people that have looked at my resume, for example, think I've been with the same company for 18 years and they wonder, could I make a change successfully? And I absolutely believe I could because of this. So if you think that's going on in their head, it probably is. It's like, you think it's too good to be true. It probably is. If you think they're going to have concern about you, they probably will. So why wait for them to ask? Or worse, they don't ask and they just go away from that interaction with that concern still. You want to address it, take it to the side, ask them if they have any questions about it, and then move on. So what does alignment mean? And why does it matter? So recruiters want candidates who do what? Three things: fit the role, also can address the challenge, and are a good fit for the culture. You fit the role, you can address the challenge, and you're a great fit for the culture. If there's misalignment or perceived misalignment, it's going to cause friction. So if your motivation, skills, values don't match the opportunity, it's going to show. Recruiters sense that hesitation. They'll sense that uncertainty or forced enthusiasm. Maybe you just need a job. You just need a paycheck. You probably shouldn't be interviewing for that job or applying, but it happens. There are people who've taken jobs until they can find their perfect job. I understand that. I've actually been there before. But if you can't get excited about the role, I would recommend finding one where you can, because that's where you're going to shine. That's where you're going to excel. The final one is clarity creates what? The magic word. What are we talking about? Confidence. When you know what you want and why you're the right fit, your conviction is going to come through naturally. So this confidence is contagious. It's compelling. Here's an interview behavior scorecard. This is also in the checklist that I'm going to give you guys. And I want you to rate yourself 1 to 5 on each of these, okay? So 5 being the highest score, 1 being the lowest. Staying calm under pressure. How well do you handle challenging questions? One of the things I'll tell you here, it's a little secret that I've used for years. I know you've all seen this. Politician is approached by a reporter. They stick the mic in front of their face and they say, John, tell me about your stance on this issue. What is your take on this issue? Can you believe that happened or this person did that? What do you have to say about it? Do you have a comment? And the politician says, John, that's a really great question. And I'd like to address that later. But what I'd really like to focus on today is this. And they just sidestep the question and they tell you what they want to tell you anyway, right? They have that power phrase. They have their 3 or 4 things they want to say. I would practice that, guys. You need to have a list of 5 to 7 power phrases that feature your green flags, those 3 that we listed before, and that maybe address areas they may have concern about you on, and be prepared to hit them with a power phrase. Very short, very concise, and you want to work that into any conversation with potential hiring managers. So when you get that tough question, maybe it's tough. Maybe you said, that's a really great question. I'm not sure I have an answer to that. But what I do know is this. I like to say that. I'm not sure about that. But what I do know is this, that when it comes to the role you're looking to fill, I'm an excellent fit because of this, that, and the other. You see how I did that? I just sidestepped that question. Second one, ownership of your stories. Do you take responsibility for the outcomes? Do you do that really well or poorly? 5 is great. 1 is poor. Anything in between. Do you have a great list of prepared examples? Do you have specific stories that are relevant, that address why you're a great candidate? And can you tell them easily? What about strong company research? Guys, this is a pet peeve of mine, particularly today in the age of AI and the internet. How well do you know the company? You'd be surprised how many times I interview top level executives and I said, do you have any questions about me or the company or the role? And they go, no, I'm pretty good. I'm good. Really? Okay. That could mean one of 2 things. It could mean you really do know everything about it and you don't need any more information. I highly doubt it, but it could be. Or it could be that you haven't even looked at their website. Well, how am I to know which of those it is? And guess what? When you make me guess, what do you think the human mind guesses? We always guess negative, right? I like to say to candidates, no response is a bad response. Time is not our friend, right? The more time it takes before you hear back, time's not your friend. So I would say be prepared for questions. Just be curious. Again, curiosity is a sign of intelligence. And then prompt communication. Are you really good at prompt communication? How quickly and professionally do you respond? Or is that kind of a weak suit for you? Add those scores up. Your score should be somewhere between 1 and 25, hopefully no less than 5, right? You shouldn't have a 0 in any of them. And then identify your gaps. Where are your gaps? And focus on preparing, how can I improve my low scoring areas? So again, I'm going to give you this. So let's talk about why these green flags and red flags are important. Green flags do what? They build trust. And I think it was, I forgot the person who said this, but they said all things being equal. I think it was David Sandler, the guy that started Sandler Sales Institute for selling. He said all things being equal, people will buy from people they like and trust. And of the like and trust, I think trust is actually more important, right? Consistent positive behaviors create credibility and confidence with recruiters. Be reliable, be on time, have your all your social platforms updated, have it consistent, congruent. Again, you can be thrown off the track easier than you can stay on the track. But these are all things that are green flags that keep you in the game. And all you want to do is live to fight another day. The red flags we talk about, the reason they're so critical that you understand them is that they break momentum. And you can't lose momentum. Even one negative behavior can derail or otherwise strong candidacy. So you can have everything right and make one mistake. And there's a perception that, well, it's like I read this book called Management by Wow. And the story that was told was the guy gets in the plane, he pulls the tray table down, and he sees a coffee stain on the tray table, the pull down tray table. And his immediate thought was what? Wow, if they don't clean the coffee stains off the tray tables, I wonder if they're servicing the engines, right? Again, that's that perceived, you're not doing the little things. So the little things matter. They definitely matter. So trust and momentum decides who moves forward. If you build trust and momentum with that confidence of being prepared and being ready, you have a greater chance of moving forward. So what about an action plan? How do we address this, guys? I just got a little bit more to talk about. Then I'm going to open it up for questions. I think Christy is going to monitor that. But in terms of a personal action plan, you want to take your two behaviors that need to be improved or eliminated, and over on the right, list those. On the left, take the top two strengths you have and say, how can I leverage these? How can I use these to my benefit? Maybe can I get someone to endorse me on that skill or that ability or that quality? Can I get a recommendation on LinkedIn? Again, focus creates results. So don't try to fix everything. If you've got 3 or 4 areas you need work on, just focus on 1 or 2, and then choose the 2 areas that you want to strengthen and 2 to eliminate. I had a really wise person tell me, Rick, what is it that you're doing that you need to do more of? And what is it you're doing that you need to stop doing? And I'm like, well, that's a pretty simple question. He goes, yeah, we'll answer it. And of course, the more I thought about it, the more complex that question became, right? It's a deep question. So spend some time with it, guys. Really, it really is helpful. And then what I want you to do is make one commitment. Here's your commitment. For my next interview, and you could substitute the word interview for interaction, phone call, web, Zoom, whatever. I commit to, and you want to write down your commitment, not to me, not to Christy, not to PRG, not to Platinum Resource Group, to you. What is the one commitment? What is the one thing I'm going to do better? And that's your anchor. And what you want to do, if you know that's something you want to focus on, maybe it's your energy, maybe it's your tone of voice, maybe it's your mannerisms. This commitment, that's your anchor. You want to focus on that before your next interview, before your next interaction, and let that guide your preparation. Let that focus your energy. Because if you're like me, we tend to go in a lot of different directions. We live in a distracted world. We get pulled in 1,000 different directions. But if you can anchor yourself to one thing you want to accomplish, again, great question, Christy. I'm so glad you asked that question. I'm not really sure the best way to answer that today, but what I do know is this. Candidates who have more confidence get forwarded in the process. People who lower the risk of me making a poor hiring decision are safer. They tend to get recommended to my candidate companies more easily. And so the final reflection is this, guys. Take ownership. It's the great separator. Candidates who take responsibility for how they show up and how they perform, they outperform everybody. They don't blame the market. They don't say, oh, it's the holidays. They don't blame the recruiter or bad luck. They focus on what they can control. And what they can control is how prepared and how ready they are for each and every interaction, because you never know who that next person you meet at the grocery store could be, the person that interviews you or introduces you to somebody who could hire you potentially. So your question is, what are you going to focus on first? Can't do everything. What are you going to focus on? And the answer to that question will determine your next outcome. This QR code, I tried it myself and it worked. If it doesn't work for you, here's what I'm going to do, guys. I am going to put in, everybody saw this. There's my LinkedIn. If you go to ricklinkedin.com, feel free to connect with me. I'm happy to connect with you. My email is rick@kloetegroup.com. Don't forget the E after the O, Kloete. It's a Swiss name. If you get in a war, I'm not going to get involved in the fight, but I will hold your money. I'm Swiss. And you can find me at ricklinkedin.com or kloetegroup.com, www.kloetegroup.com. Somebody check that QR code and let me know if that works. And in the meantime, I am going to put in the chat, let's see if I can put it in here. I'm also going to put in here a link to this worksheet. Let me know if you click on that link, it should take you to something that looks like this, okay? And this is your candidate readiness worksheet. I wanted to give you guys something you could take away and work on to get better. And again, notice it's got the self-assessment on the top. What do you need work? Where are you strong? What are the green flags? These are all the things we talked about. What are the red flags? These are the three things you want to improve, which one practical step you can take. What about alignment and motivation? Check that. Interview behavior scorecard, etc. So that's that. And guys, I want to leave you with one last thing, and then we'll open it up to questions. This is a friend of mine here in Franklin, Tennessee, passed away. His name is Jimmy Gentry. You can look him up. Fought in World War II, lived in Franklin his whole life until he went to Europe to fight in the war. He grew up with a single mom, 7 kids. And his mom had this practice when they would go eat, and he's a growing boy. She would cook breakfast. And in the South, we make biscuits. So she had biscuits for breakfast pretty much every morning. And she had a rule in the house. Those boys would get their breakfast. And at the end of breakfast, she said, nobody gets the last biscuit, Jimmy. That was their family tradition. And so one day, Jimmy said, what's this thing with the last biscuit? Why does nobody get the last biscuit? So everybody finished breakfast. They tore off to go to do their chores. And he snuck around the corner and stopped. And he waited to see who's going to get that last biscuit. And so this was during the Depression, guys. This was in the 30s, probably before many of you were born. It was before I was born. And he looked around and he noticed the back door to the back of the house and the back of the kitchen cracked open. And there was a hobo, a bum, basically what we'd call a homeless person today. And his mom gave that biscuit to the hobo. And Jimmy said, nobody gets the last biscuit. And now he knew why. And this is what I want to leave you with. No matter how bad you think you have it, there's always somebody that's got it worse. There's always somebody that needs something more than you do. So in a season of life where you may be needing a job or needing a new advancement in your career, go help somebody else. Be grateful for what you have. And remember, nobody gets the last biscuit. I'll now open it up for questions. Christy.
Hey, Rick, that was incredible. Absolutely incredible. I just look at this. Honor you. This is wonderful. So there's a couple things that I think the quote that you gave, it's not what you know, but what you can think of in time. It's brilliant. There's a couple things. People always ask about ageism. It is the one thing that derails so many people. Ageism and what's happening in the economy. Can you talk about those two things? And then there's a whole host of questions and that we'll go through.
Yeah. Well, first of all, there's 2 categories, things I can control and things I can't, right? I can't control my age, but what I can control is my mindset, my attitude, my energy. And what I would tell you, I've had client companies tell me, all things being equal, we're looking for somebody with a lot of runway. You know what that means? That's code for young. Okay, a lot of runway. And my typical response is, let me ask you a question. Given the choice between the most highly qualified candidate and someone with more runway, which of those would you prefer? And they always go, oh, yeah, I want the one that's more qualified. I said, that's what I thought you said. I said, because just so you know, like, I can't discriminate against people with less or more runway if that means age. And maybe that's not what you meant. But I say when it comes to the economy or age, those two things, I've been through ups and downs. In every down economy, there's sectors that improve. And in every up economy, there are companies that go bankrupt. It's not about the economy. It's about the people in the business. It's about the focus, the energy. And in terms of age, listen, I've met 33-year-olds that had way less energy than me. Are you learning new things? Are you excited about life? Are you the kind of person that's going to, again, be that thermostat and set the tone in a company? Or are you going to come and just be another one of the whiners and complainers about, this company sucks, they don't pay us enough? So if you demonstrate that you're the kind of person that's going to bring energy, lift the tide for all ships, you're positive, you're going to be a positive influence, I don't really care what age you are. Now, if you think that, like, I've got a little snow on top, it's about to be Christmas. I got a little snow on top here. So people are going to look at me and they know I'm not a spring chicken. But all they got to do is talk to me for 5 or 10 minutes, and I can talk about any topic, any time of the day. And so I keep up with what's going on. I'm training on AI. I love new gadgets. I'm a technology guy. Be able to talk about those kind of things. And also that trust is built when you find commonality between you and the company or the person. So I always research who I'm meeting with and the company. And if there's something they're excited about, and that also excites me, I talk about it. Why? Because it demonstrates I did my homework. I'm not sitting around waiting for you to spoon feed me about your company. I know what your problems are, your challenges, some of your recent wins. I'll say, congratulations. I saw in your news feature on your website, you just got honored with such and such a recognition. Wow, you took the time to do that? Yeah, I, I got energy. I'm interested. Again, it's how you make them feel.
Good. And then along those lines, it's the confidence. And you mentioned that. So here's a question: confidence versus overly eager. Because, there are people that think that if I'm gonna appear confident, it's like overly eager. That, and in some cases, in most cases, it hurts them more than helps them.
Yeah. One thing, there's a couple of things. I mean, what we fill in our company, we're filling mostly mid to senior level executives, which probably most of your clients are at the director level or manager level and up. If I'm talking to someone and they accomplish something in their career, but they tend to take the credit themselves or they don't talk about their team, that's a red flag for me, right? People that good leaders always give credit to their team, to their assistant managers, to their team members, to the great leadership of the owner. It's just like a good football coach. A good football coach, when you lose, they take all the blame. And when they win, they give all the credit to their assistant coaches and players. That's what a good leader does. Going back to that ageism thing too, is one of the things I look for are people that are lifelong learners. They have a high sense of curiosity. So one question will very often ask is, hey, is there a course you've taken recently or a book you've read or something you've learned lately that you're really excited about? And if I get the blank stare, that's again not a deal killer, but it's certainly a red flag because regardless of your age, there are people at 24 who are out of college who've stopped learning and don't have any intention of learning anything else the rest of their life. They're done. I've arrived. To me, this as soon as I start thinking I've arrived, that's when I know I'm in trouble because I'm never arrived. In fact, the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. The smartest people I know say, I've got so much more to learn. Go study
So,
Leonardo da Vinci. He was still
no
learning
kidding.
way into his late years.
So there's one question, and this is actually a good question. Asking questions and curiosity is a sign of intelligence. Someone asked, in some work environments, asking questions can be perceived as a lack of independence or solving skills. What do you think about? I mean, at what point does asking questions kind of create like, wait a minute, why are you asking this?
That's a great question. That's again that fine line between are you being a pest or are you being pleasantly persistent? When it comes to follow up, for example, how quickly should I follow up with a hiring manager or a company? You should follow up fairly quickly. Within 24 to 48 hours, you should write a note and put it in the mail. You should give them a phone call, send them an email. But you don't want to call them every 10 minutes or call them back every other day, right? Um, I would tell you that follow up uh, and talking about yourself is you want to be confident. You want to be able to demonstrate you've got the skills. But again, it's like the three bears. You don't want to talk incessantly, right? And you don't want to have nothing to say. You want to be kind of right in the middle there to be able to talk about things you've done and also be able to give examples, have stories in your back pocket that you can pull out that are very short and concise. Here's what the situation was. This is the task they gave me, and this is what we did, and here's what resulted from it. And be able to just say that very, very quickly within about 60 seconds. Um, did I answer the question, or do I need to elaborate
Yeah,
on?
but like during the interview, if you ask too many questions, Because I get what the person is pointing out. It's like, at what point is asking questions like, well, wait a minute,
Yeah. So here's what I would say. If you ask too many questions that can easily be found elsewhere, like
okay,
on their website, that's a concern because you can just pull up their website and in 10 seconds get like 90% of your questions answered, right? But it's what you say before you ask the question and the context. So not the questions that you ask, but how you ask them. Hey, I was noticing on your website that one of your biggest competitors also does this. I'm wondering, how do you guys differentiate yourself from them since you're number one and they're number two? If you want to stay number one, what are some of the ways you guys are doing, taking action to stay number one in your space? I just demonstrated, I checked their website out, I did research, I know who their biggest competitors. That's not just a question, Christy. That's an intelligent question that conveys a message much deeper than, yeah, I do want to know the answer to that. But that's really kind of a guided, hey, look at me. I'm I'm going to talk like that to your clients. I'm going to know about their business. I'm going to be able to solve their problems, help them with their issues, because I'm interested in helping you with your issues. Does that make sense?
yeah, it does. Thank you. And g great point. It's like if you ask a question that could be easily found elsewhere, then that's not a question that you want to ask. And okay, so here's another question. Can you comment on most important intangibles and how to use them as differentiators when competing with internal candidates? Internal candidates, what's interesting, what I'm hearing more and more is that, companies, are interviewing outside, but then they end up frequently I'm hearing that they're making a decision for an internal candidate. So, what are some differentiators that you can leverage?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind that differentiates an external from an internal candidate, and by the way, a lot of our candidates will say, hey, we're considering one or two candidates internally, but we want to compare them to some external candidates so that whatever decision we make can withstand scrutiny. In other words, if they come back and say, why'd you hire your brother-in-law who runs the shipping department? It's not just because he was my brother-in-law. Uh, we looked at six candidates, four external, two internal, but external candidates bring a fresh set of eyes and ears, right? They tend to get in. You've heard of the term echo chamber. I don't know if you know, guys, if you were around when the Challenger blew up, but the problem with the Challenger was they had O-rings that they had problems with that everybody in NASA knew about. And these young guys who were kind of interns from college said, hey, I think we have a problem with this. And we're like, who are you guys? You guys don't know anything. You know what their value was? They didn't know anything. So they asked questions that none of the experienced guys were asking, like, why does that O-ring have a problem like this? When it heats up, it does this or whatever. Again, I'm not an NASA engineer. Turns out that there was a whole discipline created in business about including everybody and all the questions. And the dumber you are about their business, probably the more intelligent questions you ask me. Because has anybody thought about this? Like maybe we should do it this way. Why didn't the internal candidate think of that? Because they're doing it the way we've always done it. So the question I would say, if I'm an external candidate, I'm going to say, you've got issues in your business, and some maybe are getting solved, maybe some haven't been solved, some may have not been solved for some time, but as maybe you have the same people looking at that issue. Sometimes getting a fresh set of eyes and ears, looking and listening to a problem and listening to your customers, maybe they can come up with a different approach. And then what I always tie that to is when I faced issues like this in the past at my previous companies, when we ran into issues, these are some of the things we did to address it. Sometimes we brought in, why do companies bring in a consultant and the consultant says, David, can I borrow your watch? Why? Because I want to tell you what time it is, right? That's what the definition of a consultant is. They borrow your watch to tell you what time it is. The only thing they're doing, they're coming in with a fresh perspective. So sometimes that clean, fresh perspective brings value. And there are many, many stories you can, like I just gave you a couple right there. That's just without even thinking off the top of my head.
Great, thank you. Here's another question. Can you ever recover from a mistake in an interview by sending a clarifying follow-up?
Yes, you can. What I would tell you is there's no failure is not fatal. It's essential. And if you do enough interviews, you're going to mess up. Okay, so expect a faux pas here or there. That's what we would say in New Orleans. Yes, you can recover. The biggest thing is that you take ownership. And by the way, taking ownership of whatever's happened to date is a huge sign of emotional intelligence. And Christy, I firmly believe that the number one determiner of your success as a candidate in any job, any position, anywhere is emotional intelligence. All the research proves that. So one of the elements is self-awareness. Self-awareness. I made a mistake. It resulted in these problems. I admit it. I take responsibility. So, if you were to go back and say, hey, when we were in the interview, you asked me this question and I gave this answer. You know what? I've been thinking about that. I can't get that off my mind. I just wanted to call you back and make sure I clarified. This is what I meant by that, in case you were wondering. And people that take the time to do that, if you do it in a positive way, that your motive is to make sure they understand you better, and they will when you do that. Okay, you just moved up the pile. That's a green flag for me. Definitely. Now, if you made 12 mistakes in the interview, it's kind of hard to go back and take responsibility for all 12 of them. But one or two, that's there's nothing that's not that's irredeemable.
Good. And that's positive. Okay, so someone asks, do you see the companies are risk averse when hiring? Meaning, do they want you to have done the job before at 90% versus 75%?
You know, uh, here's my yes, companies want, there's a belief, and the reason behavioral questions are a thing is there's a belief that, unlike financial planners, that past performance is an indicator of future results, right? All your financial planners say, hey, past results are no indication. It's no promise it's going to happen like this forever. The market went up, it's going to keep going up, and then maybe not. But there's a belief with candidates that however you've acted in the past, that's how you're going to act in the future. And that's why people ask those questions. Um, I firmly believe you can change. I firmly believe you can change. However, I also believe this, and this is something everybody should be part of your homework. We all have transferable skills, things that made us successful in whatever job, whatever company, whatever title we were in. It's who you are, because wherever you go, there you are. You take yourself with you. What I would tell you is those 5 to 7 things have nothing to do with the title of the company. It's who you are. And so if you have a firm grasp, understanding, and confidence that this is who I am, this is why I was successful there, because I'm resourceful, I'm responsible, I'm dependable, I'm a great communicator, I'm honest, I can take feedback, I welcome feedback, I have a positive attitude. All these things have nothing to do with what I worked, where I worked. But every client that I have that is looking to hire a leader, they're looking for the same 5 to 7 things. Now, maybe you studied at a different school, you have a different degree, you worked in a different industry, but at the end of the day, a leader is a leader is a leader. And what I'm good at is spotting them, vetting them, and presenting them. And this emotional intelligence thing I'm talking about, it's like you know where you're weak and you're not afraid to tell somebody. I ask, I would say if I was interviewing Bill, I'd say, Bill, let's say I were to give you $10,000 and you can spend it any way you want. I'm not going to do it, but let's say I did. And the only stipulation on that check is that you must spend it on your own personal or professional development. Okay. How would you spend the $10,000? That's a question I ask. And people who go, that stumps them. Again, not a deal breaker, but a little bit of a red flag. But people who respond quickly, it's not what you know, it's what you can think of in time. That's a big green flag for me, because I'm asking you indirectly, where are you weak? Where do you need development? Where do you need help? Right. And if you don't know where you need help, okay, that's a problem. Right. But what if is it that you do know where you need development and help, but you're afraid to tell me? Let me tell you that means you're not self-aware. So either of those issues can be bad. Both of them are horrible. Somebody who just stops at that question, Again, if I got to ask that question and I need clarification, I'm like, well, tell me, what are you getting at? Are you really trying to ask me where I need development? And I would say, yes, I am. And go, okay, I'm not really a great organized. I'm great at visions and this and that and the other, but I'm not great at this and that. That's why I surround myself with people who are good in that area. So that self-awareness thing is an element of emotional intelligence. And you know, that where are you going to invest that money? If you're afraid to tell me, good leaders know where they're weak. They hire people that surround themselves with people that are good in those areas, and they're not afraid to say, "Look, I don't have all the answers, but together we can find the answers."
Okay, we're out of time, but I have one more question because people always, always, always talk to me about this. What is the best practice for interacting with executive recruiters? So much of the time, people say, "Oh, well, I need to connect with different executive recruiters," but executive recruiters are not going to find them a job. But you know, what's the expectation that people should have when they're reaching out to executive recruiters?
Well, you're right. Our job is not to get you a job. Our job is to get our clients a good candidate, right? But what I would tell you is make it easy to do business with, right? Um, Provide me with a lot of information, easy links to click on. Um, Follow up. Tell me exactly what you're looking for and what are good fits, what are good industries, types of people you want to be introduced to. Offer. Don't press me to meet with you right away, but say if you ever run across opportunities where you need leadership candidates like me, I'd love to discuss. I'm always open to discuss new opportunities. So just letting me know you're sort of in the market because there are uh, active candidates and passive candidates. There is a perception, it may not be true always, that passive candidates that are not looking for a job are the most highly sought after. That's not always the case. I've been in active career transition, and I was a great candidate, right? But what I would tell you is make yourself easy to do business with. Put your number and email on your LinkedIn profile. Put it at the top. Reach out. Follow up. Remind them. We're just like everybody else. We're busy. We forget. Don't be afraid to follow up. Just don't do it every 10 minutes.
Thank you. Okay, so Rick, I so appreciate this has been fantastic, and I always ask the great speakers, would you come back?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, good. Because we'd love to have you back. And you have just provided so many pearls, and it's just been heartwarming, some of the stories that you shared. And thank you, thank you. Never eat the last biscuit, right? That's an
That's right.
amazing
Nobody
story.
gets the last biscuit.
I know. And so please, everyone, connect with Rick, follow him on LinkedIn. He's got great posts. I love his posts. And
And
so
if you need a
follow him on
laugh
LinkedIn.
today, my post from today is how to get a job.
Oh, there you
It's a
go.
video about how to get a job. It's a
There
little
you
bit,
go.
little bit of levity, but you'll enjoy
Uh,
it.
Good, good. And, Rick is just such a great resource and a good human to know. And so, Rick, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Just really, really
My
appreciate you
pleasure.
being here and so cherish you. Oh my gosh, you are just a gem. Thank you. And it's great to see you all. We'll see you again next week where Luke is going to talk about master your mind and elevate your life. And so Luke Yango, our boy wonder with us, and he's gonna have some great insights. And that's gonna be our last one for the year. So thank you everyone for joining us. And please, don't hesitate to reach out to me or Cindy or Michelle or Patricia. And just happy holidays. Enjoy the weekend and enjoy the rest of the day. And hopefully we'll see you back next week. Thank you again, Rick, so
You're
much.
welcome.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.